normally I do one-to-one interviews, but every Monday we do a Monday meetup and we bring the girls round. So I thought we would kick it off with first crushes. Who wants to go first?
Too many to mention for me.
I don't think we've got time for those, really, have we?
No.
I don't even want to say.
Do you want to go through the eras?
Yeah. During the war.
So back in 1922.
Yeah. Black and white. Was he in black and white then?
Absolutely. He had a moustache, I think. I think my first one was Donny Osmond. That was my first one. That's you know, and I had the poster on the wall with the cap, you know, and I constantly played, and they called it Puppy Love. Obviously, it was my parents' era more than me. That's how I got to know it.
Yeah, your mother's crush.
So that was that era.
Right.
What about you?
Mine was around the same. It was David Cassidy.
Oh,
I did love David Cassidy.
no, that was a David Cassidy.
I did. He was sexy, wasn't he,
there
David
was
Cassidy?
something about him. I was 13 at Wembley Arena, screaming, and he literally had to just move an arm or a leg, and the girls would just melt. It was just, I loved it. And David Essex as
Melt or melt?
I liked David Essex, but I liked David Cassidy, but they say never meet your heroes, don't they? Because I thought David Cassidy was very sexy. And wasn't he having an affair? He was in the Partridge Family, and the lady that played his mum, that was it. Yeah. So I went to see him 20 years afterwards, and it was a small hall. It was a really small hall. I was desperate for the toilet. And he was playing all these songs I'd never heard of before with his guitar and a lot of acoustic stuff. And I went to go out, and there was a jobs word said, if you don't have your ticket, you can't come back in. And there was this big kerfuffle at the door. And then I went to the loo, came back, and then suddenly, as I came back in, David Cassidy was telling off the audience because they wanted to hear all the old songs, didn't they? And so they started to sort of politely boo him. And so he stopped. He stopped his singing, and he said to everybody, you know, I'm not here to do the old stuff, I'm here to do... Well, it was just so awful because everybody looked sort of humiliated and embarrassed, and I left, I walked out.
Why do they do that? Why do they do when they've made their mark in their music, and people go to see them to play the songs? Why do they all of a sudden want to shift them to new music? I mean, I know they might want to sort of just, you know,
a lot of them do that,
but
don't they?
you want to hear, you go and see Elton John. I want him to play Crocodile Rock.
Yeah,
I don't want him to play.
Yeah.
But they want to sell the new album, don't they? But they, like you say, you're there because of the old stuff.
And it brings up memories. It's not just about them. They play that certain song, and it's your first dance. Takes you dancing the school disco and stuff like that. So that's what you want to hear because of what it evokes in you. But they do always want to.
And they say that time travel is not possible, but it is with music. I always think it can take you back.
It
just like that.
It can even take you back to a smell, can't it?
Yeah.
You know. So it's like the Bay City Rollers. It was really sad that Les McEwen died.
Didn't we go together? Did we not go to that concert with those? You know,
it wasn't me. It wasn't.
I do have other friends, you know.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
No, who was it?
Not old enough, are you, darling?
No. It was I saw Shawaddy Waddy. I saw. Who was it? She got David Cassidy. There was a few. It was like a really old tour that was going on just a few years ago.
But you see, Les McEwen, he understood that people had gone there to hear, like you say, to take you back. So he went with it, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah, and he was. I mean, it was really quite a shock. But I met Tony Hadley. I didn't know what to expect, and I had seen him in Benidorm being very funny, and I just thought, I can't wait to meet him. And I'd always been a big fan. So we were doing a charity commercial and for a dog shelter. And he was a little bit late, and he ran in and said, I'm so sorry I'm late. He said, but you know, the heating packed up, and I had to go to the supermarket while my wife waited for the promo. But he was just charming, and it was like being with an old mate, and we laughed at the same things, and we discussed our weight going up and down, and when our parents died, because my weight went up when my mother died, when he was saying the same thing, and we were just chatting. But just, you know, when you meet somebody after watching them for so long, it's so lovely and rare, isn't it, to actually like them.
So I met, and we're going back to the Spandau Ballet era, and I was working in town, and every day I would leave work, And for whatever reason, I don't know if he was at the BBC or the studios, or, you know, we would cross each other, and it was just by Oxford Circus.
Tony Hadley?
Tony Hadley.
Right.
Every day, he had his headband on and all the, you know, regalia, etc., etc. And every day, so you know when you pass someone in the street on a regular basis, you sort of notice each other. And you give the odd eyebrow raise, and then that goes to a wry smile.
But was this in your head, or did this really happen?
No, it actually happened.
Yeah, okay.
So I actually got to the fact that every time I saw him, he'd go, all right, and I go, thanks, you know. Anyway, because he had such a deep, lovely voice, he sang very nicely. You know, you in my head he was big, you know, he was like this, and I thought, oh, he's lovely. Anyway, this particular day, we were just down by Oxford Circus, and he was walking along with a girl. Of course, I was mortified, because I used to put my best makeup on when I was leaving work.
Rude.
How rude. And as I was coming past Topshop, I was going to go down the subway. He was going across the top of the subway, and the girl he was with went down the subway. And I always remember him saying, "I'll give you a ring tomorrow, all right?" And I went, that deep, sexy voice. "I'll give you a ring tomorrow, all right?" And I thought, I was crushed, absolutely crushed. Of course, I still, when he sang, I thought he was so well spoken. He was so lovely, and I have met him since through.
You snob!
Yeah, I know. But back then, it's because I had this vision of how he sang to how he would naturally speak. So I was crushed. Never again.
Oh.
Anyway, it was fine.
That's really sad.
I know, but you know, these things happen, don't
They do.
I mean, I've gone through a myriad of crushes. Hugh Grant.
I
Met
liked
him.
Hugh Grant. What was he like?
He was very funny.
Yeah.
Now, so as girls, we know that when we watch movies, we get crushes on people, don't we? Now, we are falling in love with their characters, but I always think Hugh Grant just plays Hugh Grant. But he's lovely, and I think, oh, I'd love to go out with Hugh Grant. Love to go out with him. Coincidentally, a few years ago, he had a best friend of his that was drinking in one of the local bars that I knew. So Hugh Grant used to come out and have drinks. So I ended up by having a couple of evenings of just in the bar with him having drinks. As you do. And do you know what? Not one bit of chemistry with him.
No.
Didn't feel any chemistry with him whatsoever. I couldn't believe it. Of course, I'm sure he had tons towards me. But he was really...
Was he disappointed when you told him?
I mean, he was very funny. He's quite arrogant, but in a really funny way. He's very, very charming. So I went home and I said to my girlfriend, I said, I don't have any chemistry with him. I recognise he's a good-looking guy, but I don't have any chemistry with him. Only about 3 weeks later, Notting Hill was on one of the other films. I went, oh, isn't he lovely? I really like him. How does that work?
But you know what? Because you stepped away from him, even though he had chemistry with you, you gave space for Liz Hurley to come in. Had you not stepped aside?
No, it was after. It was actually, they just split. They just split, which is why he was out drinking close to where I live. So that was, he was getting out of London to sort of meet new people, I expect. But how can you do that? You can have chemistry with somebody on the screen, but when you actually meet them, nothing.
No, I was like that with Jude Law. So a few years ago, I was filming in London. Yeah, I know. Who knew?
This name dropping going on here is just too much.
So, excuse me, just dropped another name. So I was fully made up with a wonderful makeup artist did my face, right? So I was fully made up, and we were filming in London in a house, and we just stepped outside for a breath of fresh air, myself and the makeup artist. And as we were chatting, this man jogs along, he's got his headphones on, and we're at the gate of this house, like an old-fashioned Victorian house, and it was Jude Law, and he took his headset off and he just stared at me, and he just kept staring at me. And I remember thinking, you're Jude Law. And then I remember thinking, well, this is a bit awkward and it's a bit rude. So we just carried on talking, and he stayed, probably only for a minute, but it seemed forever when someone's just staring at you and just, and then he put his headphones on, and he jogged on.
Jog on.
Jog on. And I thought, it was just such a really sort of surreal moment. It was like, I'm trying to have a conversation here, Jude. Do you mind? How rude. And then, he just jogged on.
Well, I've got one name to drop.
Ah, yes.
Only one. Neil Morrissey.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a story actually, but I actually had a crush on him when he was in Men Behaving Badly.
Right.
So I think I actually had the crush on the character, as opposed to the guy. And then my son got a job working with him, so he played his son in a drama thing, and we all went on set together. Well, that was the particular time when him and Amanda Holden.
Oh yes.
Kind of.
Did he have Holden?
I don't think
It's
he
a
went
story.
out with her.
No. You'll have to bet newspapers have a look.
It was a tricky time, but we kind of witnessed it unfolding.
Did
Yeah,
you?
didn't sell it.
Oh, you were very good.
I know, but I tell you how. I don't know if I can say this, but I'm gonna.
It's only us.
Edit it later. Yeah. Well, we were on set at Anne Hathaway's cottage, and we had all the Winnies and whatever set up. And me and my son and his tutor were in our little Winnie, and Sam was only 10, 11 at the time, and he was like, "Oh, can I go out to play?" I'm like, "Yeah, go on then." So he wandered off round, and Neil's Winnie was facing a field.
Right.
So he didn't expect anyone to walk past their window. But Sam did, because he was like, inquisitive child, And when he came back, he told me and his tutor, he said, "That was strange." He said, because Amanda was in Neil's Winnie, and she was feeding him his pudding.
Really?
Yeah, and me and Lena, we kind of looked at each other and went, "Oh."
What was his pudding?
Yeah. One of those rude food.
And
Is that another word for it? Yeah.
Well, maybe. And it was just the innocence of this child. And we both went, "Oh." And of course, her husband, Les Dennis, was working on the set as well.
Oh,
but he wasn't there that day.
Yeah.
And I think, I could be wrong, but I think Neil was going out with Rachel Weisz at the time.
Yeah.
And I was kind of watching it, and actually I wasn't jealous. I wasn't jealous because,
you didn't have the chemistry. You see, when you meet them in real life, you don't have the chemistry.
I just didn't. That's when I realised I liked Gary. Is it Gary, the character behaving badly, and not Neil Morrissey? He was very pleasant, but there was just, I don't know. Yeah, you say.
Sometimes what it is it's the script writer that makes them interesting, makes them come alive, doesn't it?
Yes.
Without the script, suddenly you're left with the real.
Maybe you'd have chemistry with the script writer.
Yeah, it's odd though. How do you have chemistry for someone on a screen, and then when you meet them,
nothing. Well, I have a story about going way back. I love older men. I have always loved older men. I think that's because I left home very, very young. So a lot of my experiences, by the time I got to 21, 22, to be dating somebody that same age was no use. Yeah, no use. So anyway, I had a crush on Tony Curtis.
he was gorgeous.
I know, gorgeous man.
He was.
So I had a friend who was a dress designer, and he used to say to me, "Oh, come out, we'll go places." And we went to the Val Bon one night. He said, "Come out for dinner." So we went to the Val Bon. And anyway, we're sitting having dinner, and suddenly this man is standing on his own. He's got his hands in his pockets, but he had this complete aura around him that you couldn't help but look at him.
So how old were you roughly?
Oh, I would have been. I was a teenager.
And so how old roughly would he have been?
I don't even know how old he would have been then, but he looked very handsome and dressed immaculately. Anyway, so suddenly he walks down the stairs with his bodyguard, and my friend says to me, he says, "Yvette, that's Tony Curtis." And I go, "Oh, he's just lovely." Anyway, so they go and sit at a table, we're chatting, and Tony Curtis's bodyguard comes over and asks me, "Would I like to join Tony for dinner?" Oh, I said yes. Did you say yes? No.
Oh.
Do you know what? Yeah, I know. I kick
What
myself.
is wrong with you?
Do you know what? Complete and utter loyalty, because good manners. Not that my friend and I were dating, because we weren't at all. Never did. We were just mates. But it was the fact that he'd invited me. What was I going to do? How rude if I said, "Oh, excuse me."
Well, surely he must have meant for both of you to join.
No, just me.
Just you?
Well, it's not my friend.
Oh, so that was a bit rude on his behalf.
Really
then.
rude.
Yeah.
See ya.
Really rude. Tony Curtis is dumped now.
So I said, you know what, I'd really love to, but I have come with my friend and it would be ever so rude for me not to. And that was the end of it. Kicked myself. Anyway.
But how classy of you.
Years, well, I am class, if nothing else.
Yeah.
A failure where that's concerned, though. But then I met him.
Oh.
I met him years later, and his agent, he was going around promoting one of his books, and he was married by then, and his agent was charming at the theatre in London, and we said we make programmes about certain celebrities, and she said, oh, you know, be very interested in something like that.
Because he was quite reclusive, wasn't he?
But for some reason didn't, and he was. So it was very odd that this woman should talk to us, because she wasn't talking to anybody else. But you know, I didn't really have the guts to follow it through. Fast forward a year later, he's at a book signing in up north in a hotel, and as he's signing the books, I go to the front, and he looks at me, and I look at him, and I swear to God, there was a recognition, not a chemistry, a recognition of something. And I thought, you know, these last few times I've been meant to meet this man. This man has crossed my path on numerous occasions, and I have never taken up the chalice. And why have I not done that? And I kick myself now, and he passed away not that long afterwards. It's such a shame, because fate had brought me in front of him time and time again. Yeah.
3 times.
And I just
Hello.
didn't. Yeah, hello. Anyway, ladies, I'm going to go. We're moving to, from my own stupidity to Trump. Biden.
Need a glass of water for this one.
Need a glass of wine for that one.
You see, I've even gone dry in the throat as well there. Right, now Trump. Right. I'm just going to say what I think of Trump before I go into anything, which is, I really wasn't impressed with Trump, but he was voted in. I really used to get wound up by some of the sexist things that he said, but ultimately you have to respect, which is what I always think, you know, he was voted in, and also as well, you know, he's only there for a certain amount of time. He isn't. He's only there, he's one man in an office, but it is the office that you respect. Yeah. So whilst he's in, I think you should respect the office. Yeah. That's just my thing. So before I go any further than that, Benita, what do you think?
Well, I didn't really take that much notice, to be honest. I wasn't that interested in him. Obviously, in the last year, I've taken a lot more interest. Yeah. But I was very late to the Trump party, as it were. To start with, as I say, he wasn't even really on my radar, and I bought into what the media told me. Yeah. Because I didn't know anything else. I've not met the guy. I find it quite stupid of us, actually, that we form opinions on people for what other people say.
And what we're fed.
Yeah, exactly. I was fed this from the media, that, oh, he's sexist, he's this, he's that. But I don't know the man, and I've found that people just are so led by this, and they're like, oh yeah, I hate him. And it's like, well, did you meet him then? And they're like, no. So how do you know you hate him? Like we were saying earlier, you could have that chemistry with someone on screen or off screen, but it doesn't necessarily translate. So it's the same with the press. Yeah. They're telling you how you should think. And yeah, I went with it. I went with it for a while, not in a big way. And then I started to do a little bit of research myself last year, when obviously all this shit hit the fan. Yeah. I started to look at things. And then I started to see actually some of the good things he'd done. I remember a black lady at a petrol station or something, and he'd stopped with his motorcade, or I don't know what it was. I think this was before he was president, actually. And something happened there, I can't remember the whole story, but he ended up quietly and anonymously, well, not anonymously, but she found it, paying her mortgage off because of some little... So I don't think that's a racist person, is it? If you just quietly pay someone who is black, you pay their mortgage off. Yeah. That was just one little anecdote that I heard about him. And then I heard about what he'd done with pharmaceuticals. And he'd slashed their profit hugely. I can't remember the actual figures because you know me, I'm terrible.
And I don't think Big Pharma would want that, would they?
Of course they didn't want that, but the press again didn't report that. He'd taken a certain drug, I don't know what it was, that cost £700 or something, and he'd slashed it to like $3.
Yeah.
It was, I can't remember again what it was, but that was never reported by the press. So that really started making me think, how much are we being lied to? How much of this is real? And that's when I started looking at him, and of course then with the campaign, the presidential campaign, I then started to see how we're so manipulated.
Yes, and wasn't there a boxer called Jack Johnson, who he had gone over county lines to see his white lover and had been arrested, and in those days the unfairness of it was just appalling, isn't it? It's sickening. But his family had appealed, and they'd appealed to Obama, and Obama had turned him down, and so they appealed to Trump, and Trump pardoned him. And so you hear all of these stories that we've not been privy to, and as I say, I'm not a fan. But my thing was when he came over to England, when all the women started wearing the T-shirts and then the hate. There was so much hate that it made me as an observer go, hang on a minute, it's just hate. This is making me, there's no balance, and that's what made me look into it, because it was just pure hate from people who didn't know anything about him. So that's what made me think, well, something's not right here. I don't like anything that's not in balance. It makes me uncomfortable, and it makes me look. So you're nodding, but I don't know what you're thinking, Mo.
Well, I loved him from the outset.
Oh, so, right, fair, okay.
But I think as I'm getting older, I think I'm just becoming really, I mean, people look at me now as if to say, you know, I'm going against the grain all the time.
Right.
But I always thought,
I'm finding that too.
I found it fascinating and really interesting that when they voted him in as president, Britain were voting out with Brexit. I felt that the world was ready for a bit of a change somewhere along the line. And I liked him because he wasn't a political figure. I liked him because he wasn't a politician. He's not polished. You know, he's got, you know, great business sense. But, you know, as a speaker, he's not a polished speaker. No. But I like that about him, because I like the fact that he made mistakes. But I felt that, in my opinion, it's only my opinion, obviously, that there's so much corruption with the political parties, not just in America, over here as well.
It's worldwide, isn't it?
It's getting worse.
And we're seeing it now.
We're seeing it. And I felt with him that he wasn't going to worry about what the press were going to say. He started his own, Twitter account. He started doing that because he wanted to be frontline. He wanted to say it from the heart. He wanted to shoot from the hip and say everything. So I liked him. But of course, anybody I spoke to, they went, "Oh yes, but you voted out in Brexit as well." Yes, I did vote out in Brexit. Yes, and I like Trump.
Isn't that a hanging offence?
I know.
I think it is now.
I think it is now.
And I also feel that he's had a rough ride. I do think that there was something very seriously wrong with the last election. I don't particularly like Bindon, as I call him. And the guy can't even get up steps without falling over. He's
That was very funny, though.
It was very funny. So there's something fundamentally not right. It's not whether or not you believe in conspiracy theories or whatever. Something's not right.
Well,
you're right.
Yeah, and they are now starting the recounts, aren't they? Now, what I do not understand, there's two things I don't understand with Biden. It's quite clear that he loses train of thought, right? So all joking aside now, why? I mean, I saw a really sad. I think Obama was coming up to him and he started shouting for his nurse. And that's not even, it's like a comedy, but the fact is it's real, it happened, and it's been caught on lots of things, too many to mention. But wouldn't you think his family would say, look, we can't have this man ridiculed, this man is obviously not very well, and we're going to pull him out. So the fact that he is just allowed to stumble on, I find really actually rather sad. And I know we've gone from Trump here, but also with the recounts that they're doing now, I know that they've started now in the different states, and I know that in one particular state they're saying that there's 250,000 votes that they believe are actually illegal aliens. Immigrants, sorry. So that means that they
not
get
aliens.
Immigrants.
Not real aliens.
Yeah, not real ones. No. That's next.
It wouldn't surprise me these
They
days.
put it in the newspaper.
But I believe they're there.
I
So-
believe and yes.
So where have you seen this information?
So, well, it's actually out there now that 1,000 lawyers have come in from Biden-Binden's camp to stop the recount. And I'm trying to think which state it is now. Is it
It's Arizona?
Arizona? Yes,
Yeah,
it's Arizona.
yeah.
They're starting with Arizona, and what they're saying is that there was something like 100,000 postal votes in Arizona, but when they've looked at these postal votes, not one of them has a crease. Well, that's not possible. And they were also watermarked. So
Yes, I heard about
yeah,
that.
Yes, I heard about
Yeah.
the watermarking.
so if Biden has sent 1,000 lawyers, there might
Gotta
be
be something a bit
something's
worrying.
going on.
Well, you'd think that there must be something going on because they've been so dismissive of everything. And I find that, again, to me, that's to do with all the corruption.
Yeah.
Because all these cases, I don't think Trump helped himself in a certain way because he was sort of quite arrogant or cocky or however you want to say it, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to prove it. But when it actually went to court, it was like a little trickle. Nothing really happened, and it got thrown out.
Yes, we did.
And
but
it got thrown out with very little information, and we
How
didn't.
much of them are owned?
Well, exactly, and that's where you think, well, how many of the judges sitting up there,
Are owned.
are owned, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So you never get
And
the
also-
true story.
Also, it's something that's over his presidency. It looms over. So wouldn't it be better to say, right, I'm having a recount because actually I've got bigger things to think about, bigger things to do. I cannot have you have this sort of cloud over me, and yet they just carry on, don't they?
Yeah.
But I think that the telling thing was, and I'm not sure of all the facts on it, but wasn't it something like everyone went to bed and at night and Trump was like, 250,000, whatever it was, votes, and then all of a sudden everyone woke up in the morning and he's like 500,000 down.
Hadn't it?
How did that happen?
Yeah.
And then they're talking about ballot papers that have then been counted afterwards. I mean, I know here I do a postal vote,
Yeah.
but my postal vote has to be in by a certain time. If it doesn't go in by a certain time, it's not counted.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there are all these stories coming out. So there's no smoke without fire.
And also, they weren't allowed to watch some of the.
No, they weren't allowed to watch
And that
the
is
counting.
high, because I used to work the elections here
Right.
in Britain. I did them for quite a long time.
I can see
so-
that with you. Yeah. Fabulous.
I used to be the little lady there, counting out the things. But I've also done the counts and things. And I like to think that Britain, are more on the ball.
Yeah.
And I do know that. It's like literally we had to shut those doors at 10 at night. We had to open them at 7. And anyway, if they came up to the door at 1 minute past 10, that's it, that count wasn't voted. It was not taken part. And then when we did the count, I remember meeting James Cleverly actually before he was big, before he was famous. He's my local MP, so let's not talk about that because I quite liked him when I met him, and then recently his performance has not endeared me. But that's not.
You've been writing to him, haven't you?
I often write to him.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, does he return the?
He has returned some of the things, yeah, but it's the usual politician bullshit, It's like they never answer a question, do they? But I was part of that count, and he came over, and everyone was allowed it. There's certain people allowed in, and they are allowed in to witness the whole count. So again, when I started seeing this in America, I was very, very suspicious because we were all trained to be so strict about it here. I actually heard that there was one state that they actually had something like 250,000 more votes than constituents.
There's only 90 people that lived in the state.
Something like that. They literally had, and all these dead people were voting, and
Because I saw a thing on the day, and they had 2 counters being interviewed, and you saw the ballot box behind them, and people were counting. And the presenter, I can't remember what channel it was, saying, how's everything going? They said, yes, but there are a few, anomalies going on. And the presenter said, well, can you tell me what? And they said, well, for a start, we've got a vote from a guy who died about 5 years ago, and then we've got another vote from somebody who's already voted once already. So there are things like this, and we think, well, there's 2. Okay, there's got to be
so
more.
many inconsistencies.
But what you would hope, this is what I don't really get, what you would hope is your hate for President Trump shouldn't mean that you can ignore this, because surely you want democracy, you want to live in it, you want to know that your vote counts. And if your vote doesn't count, well then democracy's gone, hasn't it? It's gone. Absolutely. So that's what I don't get. I don't get, because even if I had somebody go in and I wanted them in because I loathed that person more, if it was too much, if it's a cheat, then my vote, then democracy's dead. Yeah. Then what we're saying is it doesn't count for anything. You might as well forget about it. Might as well shut up shop and go.
Totalitarian state. Once democracy's gone, we're done.
We had the same thing with Brexit. Now I remember, obviously, I mean, some of my friends said, well, I don't know what's wrong with you, you know, it's Armageddon, the whole country's, you know, and I said, look, at the end of the day, we are, the country is a company in my small brain, and if we don't think that we can go in and we can renegotiate deals with these other companies around us to be able to do the best for our country, we've got something really seriously wrong. Yeah. So what you're saying is that the whole world's going to end because we're voting out, and our country can't cope with it. We're not intelligent enough. We can't negotiate the new deals. Yeah. What I found amazing was that the people who were inners, they marched through London. Okay, but we'd had an actual vote on it. Okay, so that it was a democratic thing. It had a vote. So all these people that didn't agree with the outcome of the vote were walking through London, and I turned round to a friend and I said, okay, so what's next? When we have the general election and one party gets in that the other party supporters don't like, are we going to have a repeat of people walking down the street going, well, we're not happy, we're not happy because they got in and we're not happy about it?
Because that's what democracy is about. You don't always get your own way, you don't always get what you want, so but what do you want? And I couldn't understand that either, because whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, you either agree with democracy, but you can't say, well, actually, my vote counts. Because what you're saying is, when you're marching down the street, is our votes count more than your votes. Yes. So can we have a rematch until, and how many do you do it until I get the answer that I would like? So really it's all about you, isn't it? It's what you want. And yet we haven't fallen into, you know, I mean, we've fallen into disarray because of everything else that's going on at the moment.
And prices are going up. The prices of wood have gone up.
Yes, because I need wood a lot. Well, to be fair, it's important, but
it is. No, but it gives you an example. So a friend of mine is building an annex, and they got a price for their annex, and the girl said on the phone, just be aware that because we can't get stock over, because we're now out of the EU, all the prices are going to go up by 17%.
That's a bit canny, isn't it? Yeah.
So and that's what happened. But I think there's going to be a settling in period, and I think we'll be absolutely fine. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because we're talking about Trump, we're talking about the protesters that obviously then went out after he didn't get through. Everyone was like up in arms about it. Again, you could sort of say, well, just because you didn't get the reaction that you wanted, you know, you can't be throwing your toys out of your pram and walking, down the street.
You've got to be on the right march.
You've got to be on the right side.
You've got to be on the right march.
It's like a strange
and who morally decides which march is the correct march to go on. And that's what I'm noticing. Lots of marches, but it has to be how do we get from Trump to marches?
I don't know.
I don't know, but you did tell me it's probably going off piste a bit, but you did tell me the other week when you went up to London.
Off piste, that's a big one.
I know. I'm here all week.
Sadly. What happened was I'm filming at Trafalgar Square, and so that's all about what's going on now. So that was last year. So there'd be about, say, 25,000 people. And then what happened was they decided that they would all then go down Whitehall, and well, not all of them, but a great deal of them had decided that they would then go down and stand outside of Downing Street. So I'm running with my camera, and I'm thinking, right, okay, so I want to get ahead so I can get some great shots up there. And so I'm running on the side with the police because, you know, they're on their own running, so I'm running too. What I didn't realise was a lot of the Trafalgar Square decided to follow me. I knew what I was doing. So I carried on, and I didn't realise we were stopping at Downing Street. There were so many people. I just found myself, I kept walking. So then I'm at the Green outside of Parliament.
Oh, you were that far down?
I was that far down. Suddenly there's a different march going on. So it was Black Lives Matter. No, it was Black Lives Matter.
Right, okay.
So Black Lives Matter were on the Green protesting, And then there was a group of people shouting at Black Lives Matter who was saying, you don't speak for us, who's paying you? And then so I'm watching this in bewilderment thinking, I'm in the wrong march because this is where I'm now in Black Lives Matter, but I started over there at Trafalgar Square. And as I turned round, that's when a man, he turned round and he was with his boyfriend and they were arguing and they were going, this isn't the right march. So I don't know which march I was supposed to be on. I said, what are you looking for? And he said, I'm looking for, you know, the Extinction Rebellion.
Oh, Extinction.
I said, no. He said, we're looking for the bridge. I said, no, that's next week. He went, I knew we'd got it too late. And then I realised...
You've got to get with the social calendar of the marches.
So then what I had to say to my group who'd followed me, I went, everybody back, everybody, Downing Street. We're supposed to be Downing Street. So it was, but what I loved about it, I have to say, was that what I loved, I thought, in the middle of all of this, was that the British, we're still there with our 3 different marches, except we've all merged.
Yeah.
We've merged on College Green, nobody knows what they're doing now.
Well, I support you as well. Yeah, I support you too.
So then I trotted back up, as you do. By that time, because I'm on my knees, I needed gas and air.
Is that the day you had to jump over a fence to get away from something?
That was another story.
Oh,
can we leave that? I have no dignity left. I have no dignity.
I think I was on this one as well.
Well, so I was trying to get over
Not where you had to get over the fence. The other one when you went down to
Downing Street.
Geza, the one who did the 99% song.
He was outside. He'd been outside for weeks and weeks, hadn't he? Yeah, demonstrating.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But what I would say is I love democracy, and it's democracy that allowed those 3 to merge together, and also if you were looking down at the 3 merging, you'd see it for what it was. It's a bit of a nonsense. Why are we all into fighting? You know what I mean? So anyway, okay ladies, we started with our crushes, so now we're going to end it with who don't we like. And normally I can just pick a name out of my head, they just come and go, and suddenly I can't, so I'm gonna go over to you, Mo. Who don't you like?
Well, I've got 2 names, but I'm going to go with the one that's wound me up the most over the years, and that's got to be Tony Blair. I can't bear him.
No.
I've always said, give me 5 minutes in a lift with that man. Just 5 minutes.
And he wouldn't enjoy it.
Do you know what? How anybody could not see the fact that only my opinion, but him and his wife, social climbers of the highest degree, weapons of mass destructions, where were they? He should be inside as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And the fact that when he spoke to camera, every word, hand movement was choreographed all the way along. And if you couldn't see how fake he was, then I don't know what else. I thought he was a absolute disgrace. Very clever though. And I think one of the cleverest moves he ever did was, how can I get more votes? I'm going to, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to align myself with all the celebrities in the world. All the big bands, all the famous actors, and I look really cool because all these people have fans. So therefore, the fans, if the fans like, and that's how he got there. And I thought that he was an absolute disgrace, and he was so insincere. He was full of insincerity. Every public announcement he ever made, and I used to say, please just get me in a lift with him. Please, because I just want to say what an awful person you are, and as for your wife,
I can't get that image out of my head.
She's 5 minutes in the lift, Tony Blair, and tell me not for the right reasons. I thought he was an awful man, and I still think he is. And in actual fact, if I had my way, he should be banned from speaking on TV, a bit like Sinn Féin many years ago, because he always seems to sort of come up from underneath his rug somewhere, doesn't he?
Rock.
Come underneath the rock. Because he always has an opinion. He has an opinion about Brexit, he has an opinion about this, he has an opinion. He's full of his own, he loves his own voice.
But why does he come back so much now?
Well, I don't know, but he needs a haircut.
He needs to get back under his
Have you seen the image of him now?
Yeah, what's that going on? Like Peter Stringfellow. With the same principles, possibly.
No. Oh my God, he was on a few days ago. I know that. Have I got news for you? They actually ran him, and people were going,
It's like it's got image or something.
It's got
it's kind of all slicked back.
But someone was saying to me, and I don't know if
as
it's...
long as we don't see Cherie Blair on a pole dance behind him.
Oh, no, I know. But someone was saying to me, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, but he's obviously got a house in London, and he still has full security guards, bodyguards on his gate, even though he's not there.
No
and I did hear
there.
and I did hear a story many years ago, so I don't know if it's correct, but I did hear that one of his nannies wanted time off at Christmas to go home and see her family, and she hadn't been home for, I think it was something like 5 or 6 years, and he wouldn't let her go.
Oh, who did you get this from?
Someone I work with.
Nah.
So, you know, whether or not, but I just thought he was,
But it doesn't really matter. The fact is you want to be 5 minutes in a lift.
5 minutes in a lift.
Which
That's fair enough.
Just to say you might have
yeah.
conned, or, you know, you didn't fool me.
Who do you loathe?
Oh, I think I'm not going to be alone on this one.
Yes.
Oh, Matty Hancock.
It's an
I
unfortunate
am
name as well.
not going to be alone on this.
Why?
Well, the main thing is, obviously, he's well, in my opinion, he's a psychopath.
Okay.
And I don't think any psychotherapist would agree with me if they've watched some of his footage on TV. That Oscar, well, it wasn't Oscar winning because
It wasn't very good.
it was not even. No, it was the opposite of Oscar winning.
Yeah.
When he did the whole thing when
Raspberry Award.
he pretended to cry. It was the worst acting in my life. Do you remember when we have the V word.
He cried and then he
I'm so happy. And then who was interviewing him?
and he burst out laughing, didn't he?
It was Piers, wasn't it? Piers Morgan
I don't know.
was interviewing him, and he said, "Oh, you look a bit overcome with emotion there, Matt." And he went, "Oh, yes, I am." And he was laughing.
What a crock.
He was laughing, and I just thought, well, if that doesn't warn you about
I didn't
something,
see that. I'm going to
Did you
go.
not
I'm going to
see that?
have to try and find it
Because
now.
it was
is
so
horrific.
It actually makes your skin crawl.
Yeah.
That you know you don't know what you're watching, but you know something isn't right.
You
So
know
whatever it
something
is,
very sinister.
you instinctively, well, you should instinctively think this
And if
is
you
a red light here. There's
Would
something
you like
on.
5 minutes in a lift with him?
I would like, yes, absolutely.
Hang on, but it could be a bit busy in that lift because she's
I
already
think it'd
in
be
that
really
lift.
busy.
Yeah.
I think
Two
there's
for
a
the
lot
price of
people-
one.
Well, we could do that.
Couldn't
we?
we
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah, I would need a bucket though because being in that close proximity with him, I'm going to vomit, especially if Blair's in there as well. There's going to be a lot of vomiting going on. On that, sorry.
Oh no, my turn.
Yes, yeah, come on.
Well, okay, this is on a lighter note.
Go on.
Okay, lighter note. So I'm not going to mention who this was because this.
Oh, do we have to guess?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll tell you after.
Okay.
All right.
So this particular character, I was working on something, and they started off very charming to everybody, very charming. But we saw as time went by, this was not a charming character, and had a bit of a reputation for slightly bullying people, shall we say. And I remember saying to one particular person on this job, you know, why do you let them put up with it? And they said, well, because he's a bigger name than I am, so I have to put up with it. So that's the pecking order. And I remember one day, for some reason, we used to do a lot of our work together, filming, and it was my turn again, lucky me. And so I just sort of ran and rehearsed what I was supposed to do, and then I was told I can't hear anything, and I can't see her. Didn't talk to me, the director. If she's not in my eye line, how on earth am I? And just this big thing, and I'd had enough because we'd been going for weeks at this point, and I'd really had enough. So I just said, right. I said, what would you like? What? I'm only here for you. I just want to make you happy. What would you like? Would you like me to stand? Because I'm just here for you. That's all I'm here for. What do you think then? Because I'd really had, and I didn't have a problem after that day, but what I was watching was somebody crushing different people, and I think it's really important I'm very easygoing, but what I will not tolerate is I don't like bullying, and I can't. There's something within me, even though it's easy for me just to shut up. There's something. The mist goes down, and I have to. I have
say
to.
something.
Yeah. So I think it's the Leo in me that says, I don't think so. Not here. Not on my watch. So anyway, on that lighter note, we will leave it. Thank you, ladies, for joining me. I don't know.
Our pleasure.
We went round the houses, up the chimney.
We did, didn't we? Into a lift.
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be meeting the girls next Monday for a Monday meetup. I'm Yvette Rowland, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.